We have a friend of the program, a friend of our family, actually, David McCormick, who's running for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. Very tough state. He's got a stealth candidate. He's running against Bob Casey, who's basically been running on his father's name and reputation for decades. And yet he is quite radical, quite left-wing, isn't he, David?
Oh, my, he really is. He really is. He's shown no leadership, Mark, but the thing about him is he's voted 98% of the time with Joe Biden. 98%. So all this out-of-control spending, you can thank Bob Casey. The war on fossil fuels, you can thank Bob Casey. The wide-open border, you can thank Bob Casey. And so what's happened is he's out of step with Pennsylvania. And today was a good example of it. We had a great event. Betsy DeVos was in town, and we had an event with Moms for Liberty. And we talked about transgender males, biological males competing with women in sports. I'm a father of 6 daughters, Dean and I, as you know, Mark. And so this is a crazy, absolutely guts Title IX, guts college sports is absolutely indefensible. And Bob Casey, just as an example of how far out of touch, has been a co-sponsor of the Equality Act, which requires transgender bathroom access and allows biological men to play in girls' sports if they identify as female. And so this is where, I don't know how this has happened. I guess the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left, and Bob Casey's just moved with them, but it's not where Pennsylvania is.
And are you able to get the message out? Because I'm sure the free media there is very difficult on you.
Well, listen, I'm getting the message out in lots of different ways, and it's showing. I think people are increasingly aware that Casey hasn't been a leader, but even worse, he's been a complete follower of Joe Biden. Joe Biden's very unpopular in Pennsylvania. And so obviously we're doing the normal media and so forth. But I'm taking the case to the people. And so we have 67 counties in Pennsylvania. In the last 5 months, I've done all 67 counties. I've traveled 42,000 miles across the Commonwealth. I've done 350 events. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of that is to make the case of here's the kind of leadership Pennsylvania needs. Here's the crisis we face. And Bob Casey's failed you. It's time to retire Bob Casey and put an outsider in place who's going to go to Washington and shake things up a bit.
You know, David McCormick, I see Biden comes to Philadelphia, but he only comes to Philadelphia, at least most often, every election cycle. I can't think of a single damn thing he's done for the city of Philadelphia, let alone the black community in Philadelphia. Can you? No.
And that's why you're seeing the movement in the polls that you're seeing, Mark. So you think about these, 3 big problems we face in Pennsylvania, and you know these well. Inflation. Under Joe Biden, prices are up on average more than 20%, and that's killing working families. 60% of Pennsylvanians live paycheck to paycheck, so they're getting squeezed on food, fuel, and rent. So that's number one. 2, this wide open border is killing Pennsylvanians with fentanyl. I was at the border 10 days ago. I saw it for myself in Yuma, Arizona. We lost 4,000 Americans last year to fentanyl. Third problem is crime. As you know, in Philadelphia, you have a radical district attorney named Larry Krasner, who has essentially let violent crime run crazy. It's moving into the suburbs. And so if you think about those 3 issues, those aren't Republican problems. Those aren't Democratic problems. Those aren't black problems or white problems. Those are problems for everybody. And that's why you see this enormous failure of leadership, and people are saying, oh, my God, I can't imagine another 4 years of that. And it sure was a lot safer. It sure seemed the border was a lot more secure. The economy seemed a lot better under the administration of President Trump. And I think that's what you're seeing is why people are throwing up their hands and saying, listen, I don't even want to talk about Republican or Democrat anymore. I'm going to talk about leadership and the kind of leadership that's required to change the direction of our great country. And, of course, as you know from our talks, that's why I'm running. I think we're in deep trouble, and we need people who are going to get in there and fight for our future. And if we don't change the direction, we're going to all deeply regret it.
Now, people all over Pennsylvania are affected by illegal immigration. It is so massive. It is so ubiquitous. And it's hurting every community across that state, which I know well. It's my home state, as you know. But I have to assume it's especially hurting places like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and some of the smaller cities in the central part of the state, where migrants just naturally go looking for jobs and so forth. What's the impact on the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, there's two for sure, and a third I hope never shows itself. The first is this fentanyl crisis, and that's everywhere, Mark. I mean, that fentanyl, it crosses the border in Yuma. Half of it comes through Yuma. It takes 48 to 72 hours to find its way to Pennsylvania. It goes down the main arteries, 80, 81, 76, and it finds itself in the cities, in the small towns. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. And if you talk to sheriffs or district attorneys, as I do, this problem is a big deal because that fentanyl gets cut into other forms of drug. It's highly volatile. That's why we have such a high death rate. It's highly addictive. So that's pervasive. We at the same time have 13 sanctuary counties or cities, and this is where the economic burden, the people coming and flocking to these areas is really playing a toll on the citizens of that community. Healthcare costs, crime, everything else. So that's the second big issue. The third, and man, I hope this doesn't come true. But when I was on the border, just 10 days ago, 2 in the morning on board with the Border Patrol, 50 people walked across the border right in front of me. In that group of 50, there were 5 Syrians, military-age men, and there were 5 or 6 Chinese nationals. There's been 10 million illegal immigrants. There's been 160 last year on the terrorist watch list. And as you know well, Mark, it only took 13 to take down the towers. So I'm deeply worried that we have embedded risk, terrorist threats in our country through these 10 million that have come across the border. And my God, I hope we don't pay the price for that, but I'm deeply worried we will. And that would, of course, affect us all. So that's how I see it playing out today in Pennsylvania.
Well, your seat is crucial. It's crucial to Pennsylvania. It's crucial to the nation. We got to take the Senate, win the presidency, hold the House. And if people want to help you anywhere in the country, especially Pennsylvania, where do they go, Dave McCormick? DaveMcCormickPA.com. And that's where they can find out about me. And as I said, I'm everywhere across the Commonwealth. So you can find out on my website information about rallies and opportunities to get together. And I'll answer any question. I'll talk about any issue. I think this is a time for dramatic change, and I'm excited about it, Mark. And I think I'm going to win because the country needs change, and 80% of Pennsylvanians think the country's heading in the wrong direction. And so I think they're dying for new leadership. Well, I know you personally. Family does. You're a fantastic individual. You're a great leader. You're a combat veteran, and here you are putting everything aside, trying to save your country. I hope you folks will support Dave McCormick all throughout Pennsylvania and the country. He's a fantastic candidate. God bless you, and we're going to have you back soon, my brother.
God bless you, Mark. Thank you.